the reason I wanted to talk about it is because I thought it kind of shined a light on what I think are some problems with libertarians at the moment in 2019. And I, when we went to Porkfest, and I think I mentioned this on the episode, on the podcast there. But then as I was like hanging out with people and just bullshitting with people after the show, I found myself saying this a lot, kind of exploring this theme. It was like my pitch to libertarians today. And it wasn't something that I had planned on saying. Like, I didn't go in there thinking this through. It just kind of came to me. And then the more, it was just like in the moment, I was like trying to talk to these people because it's an interesting, like when you go, like in 2012, 2013, libertarians were having a moment to some degree in this country. That is the reason why people know what a libertarian is. If you would have talked to people in 1998 about being a libertarian, the first thing you'd have to do is explain what a libertarian is. Now, there's still a lot of misconceptions about what it is to be a libertarian. Not, people who are outside of the world will say stupid things about it, very uninformed things about the ideology a lot. But people know the term. They know it's a thing. And this is because of Ron Paul, what was called the Ron Paul Revolution, the Liberty Movement, all that. And a lot of that juice has been lost. In my opinion, a lot of that is because Ron Paul's not out there running for president anymore. Rand Paul fell flat on his face. Gary Johnson was an absolute joke. And that's kind of took the wind out of our sails. And other things rose up. The right-wing populist movement kind of rose up. And the left-wing socialist movement rose up. And libertarians were kind of left out of that. And a lot of libertarians left and went in different directions. Some went to the alt-right. Some went to the left socialists, like Bernie Sanders route. And anyway, and we are here where we are now. But when you go to Porkfest, it's almost like, traveling back in time to 2012 or something like that. And you're like, oh shit, there's this movement like that's still alive. You're speaking to the remnant, like you're right in front of them. And here's the remnant of liberty. Like the last few people who still really care. We're like, we went all in with this thing. We moved up here to New Hampshire. We're still here. And when you're talking to them, like I didn't even really think this through before we went, but then you go there and you're talking to them and you're like, okay, well, let's, it's one thing if like I'm just talking to people who like to the general public or people who aren't familiar with these ideas, and you're like trying to convince them of these ideas or point out the bullshit of all the like the status quo and the mainstream media and politics, and it's fun and you break that all down. But then once you get in front of a group of everyone who kind of knows that already, like you've all read Rothbard, you're all up to speed with this, it's hard to not just immediately kind of shift to like, okay, so what's our strategy? Like, if we're all on the same page here, what do we want to do? Do we just want to be involved in like a circle jerk and we all feel like we know better than other people? And okay, we do. But like, what's that really worth? Like, okay, so we're right. We get it. Congratulations. Like, after a while, you kind of go like, okay, so do we actually want to try to see more liberty? Like, in reality, do we actually want to live in a more free society? Because if so, then there's this part that libertarians have never been too good at. There's this whole other thing, which is like, there's like the philosophy of libertarianism, but then there's this whole other part, which is, how do we get there? How do we get there from where we are right now? And my big pitch to them was like, well, it would seem obvious that at least the task that every libertarian has who actually cares about liberty, about actually making a difference and getting there, would be that like, it's not like I'm saying in 1920 we had this big movement and now it's gone. I'm saying in 2013 we had this big movement and now it's gone. That's not that long ago. It's 5.5 years ago we had a movement. 5 years ago even we had it. So maybe the thing should be to like, let's get back to where we were 5 years ago. Like, what did we lose? Where did we go wrong? Let's correct that and see if we can't fucking get this thing going a little bit more. And my main pitch to libertarians when I was up there was like, look, you have to be courageous. You have to have some balls. If you're pitching people on we have to do things a whole different way. We have to throw out all of your preconceived notions, and I want to introduce you to something that is exciting and new. What you have to do is wake people up from their slumber. And if you're doing that, you're not going to do that by just being afraid to take any risks or agreeing to play within the confines of the rules that have already been established for you. And I said that what I said was, look, what started this whole thing? What started the whole Ron Paul movement was Ron Paul, the thing that made me a libertarian and made people like Pete Raymond and like so many other people a libertarian was the Ron Paul Giuliani moment. And what Ron Paul did in that moment, right, was he went into George W. Bush's Republican primary field. While George W. Bush is president, he goes into the Republican debates and says, you know what caused the war on terrorism? The U.S. military. He said the most courageous, politically incorrect thing. As Scott Horton says, he gave them the harshest dose of medicine that you could hand that crowd. And he got a lot of boos for it. And he was fine with that. He was like, you can all think I'm terrible, but I'm going to tell you this. And he was telling the truth. So he said the most courageous truth that you could speak. And what I was saying to these libertarians is that that's what you need to take back. And that's why I'm able to inspire a lot of people to get interested in this shit, because I'm willing to kind of say these bold truths that will get you hated in certain circles. You have to be willing to say things that, you know how many things I say on this podcast every fucking episode that there's some group of people out there who would just think I'm a horrible person for saying that? Every episode, I give you something that some group would think I'm horrible for saying. But if it's the truth as I see it, then I'm going to say it. And then it kind of wins people over. This is how you convert people, because you're willing to tell the truth even when it takes you into unpopular areas. If you're willing to tell the truth until there's something unpopular, and then you're like, well, I won't touch that because that could be viewed as offensive, that's never going to convince anybody. So this is and by the way, this is the essence of the problem with Rand Paul and Gary Johnson and Bill Weld and all of those guys. I mean, there's other problems with them too, but the main problem is that they won't tell the truth if it's something that could be seen as unpopular. And that's when you lose. That's when you lose. And the other thing is, like, you have to be kind of aware of the moment we live in. And there is an outright, not subtle or implicit, an explicit, outright attack on masculinity. And this is why the alt-right took so much juice, because say whatever you will about them. This is what I said up at Porkfest. I was like, say whatever. You could disagree with them on everything. They've got fucking balls. They've got balls of steel, man. And that's a little something that we should maybe take from them, especially if you think that they're not right. If you think they're not telling the truth, well, then it's like, have balls and tell the truth. But don't let anyway, this was the heart of my pitch to them. Like a Dante Nero, like, get your balls back and start telling the fucking truth. Seeing as how you know it. Look, man, you know this shit better than any of these people do. You already do. It's not even close. It's like, I watch like mainstream media and the political debates and this whole political theater because for whatever reason I'm obsessed with it and I love all this shit. These people know nothing. They don't know nothing. They don't even know what a price is. They don't even know what like a fucking. How many times do you even hear like what do you think of the Democrats who were on stage debating yesterday? What do you think their take on fractional reserve banking is? They don't have one. It's not even like they're for or against, or they think the costs outweigh the benefits. I like
fractions. I learned that in grade school. I think it's an important part of education, and that's why we're going to provide student loans.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine if one of those debate moderators asked up there, they went, what is your take on fractional reserve banking and its effect on the economy? Go, each of you. You have a minute. You just see the looks on their face. They'd be like, what? This,
I think we need more lending to homeowners and small businesses, and that's why we need more regulation of the banks, because otherwise, without being regulated, they'll crash the economy. Thank you.
So anyway, whatever, my point is just that it's like so you have this knowledge, that's fine. But now how are you going to put it into practice? And to me, the only way that you're going to actually make a difference is not to go like, oh, I play by all the same rules as the other guy, I'm just a little bit different than them. Because then they just go, no, why would I do something different? I'll just go with the same path that we've been on for that. You have to kind of shock them out of their system. Like, our job isn't to be like, let's be Hillary Clinton, but a little bit better on X, Y, and Z. Our job is to go like, you live in the fucking matrix. I'm offering you a red pill to take you out of this fucking matrix and realize that this whole thing is bullshit. This whole fucking paradigm that you believe in, it's all a lie. The whole thing is a lie. And this is what fucking drives me crazy. It's like, I've been going back and forth a little bit with Nick Sarwark on Twitter, who I will be debating September 10th at Gene Epstein's Soho Forum. Go to thesohoforum.org to get tickets. I think it's close to sold out. So if you want to come to it, go get tickets immediately.